In 2010, Dan was initiated, passed, and raised at Waterloo Lodge number 539 in Waterloo District. He is a past master of New Dominion Lodge number 205, the Assistant Secretary of Heritage Lodge number 730, and is a member of Ontario's Second Observant Lodge, Templum Lucius number 747 in Stratford. In 2019, Dan was appointed as the Grand Director of Ceremonies by Most Worshipful Brother David J. Cameron. Dan served as the Masonic Chip Chair, Chair of Fraternal Relations, Chair of Strategic Planning Committee for his lodges, Public Relations Chair for Waterloo District, 3 District Deputy Grand Masters, Benevolence Chair in 2016 and 2017, and he served on the Brock Partnership Committee for 5 years and is the Vice President of the Masonic Foundation of Ontario. Dan is also a member of Mocha Shriners, the Cambridge Shrine Club, the Waterloo Oriental Band Clown Unit, and was an appointed member of the Divan Membership Committee from 2013 to 2015. Dan is also a member of the Royal Arch Chapter 117 in Waterloo, Scottish Rite Valley of Guelph, and a 32nd degree Mason in the Moore Consistory in Hamilton. International Masonic traveling and visiting is one of Dan's favorite experiences. He attended the International Committee on the History of Freemasonry in Edinburgh, Scotland. He regularly visits his father's mother lodge, Oatlands Lodge number 1005 in Glasgow, where his father was bestowed with the Diamond Jubilee Medal and the title of Piper Emeritus for exceptional service to his lodge, as well as other lodges in Scotland and England. Dan is a regular visitor to the Grand Lodge of Cuba and many lodges on the island. He was made an honorary member of Logia Reivindicación Manzanas Cuba for his continued support and assistance to the lodge. I now pass you over to Right Worshipful Brother Graham.
There we go. Stephen, thank you very much. If I only thought I could live up to that great introduction, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Brethren, thank you very much for taking time out of your Saturday night. I know how busy a lot of you folks are, and I really do appreciate it. And to our candidates, again, thank you for taking the time to tune into this. I think what you're doing is great, to be able to find out a little bit of this while you wait. And I speak for Masons all across the jurisdiction, we're so sorry that you have to wait this period of time. But I think these opportunities that you're having now to join Zoom meetings when you can, and get a little bit of education and maybe do some reading and chatting with some of your mentors, I think will be of great service to you. And I'll also apologize in advance. I've done a lot of stuff, as Steve told you, but I'm not really always the brightest bulb on the string, and that's proven by the fact that I told Angus, sure, I'd be more than happy to talk at the meeting right after Most Worshipful Brother Don Mumby, which is a pretty tough act to follow. So I really have my work cut out for me, and that was a great talk from Most Worshipful Brother Mumby last month. So today, what I thought I'd focus in, Most Worshipful Brother Mumby did a great job of explaining kind of what I would say was a Masonry 101. So I know you'll have family and friends asking you questions, and of course, because you're not a Mason yet, you might not know the answers, and you might have some of these questions yourself. So I thought I'd start off with the big one, which is everybody wants to know what the secrets and mysteries of Freemasonry are. So I thought I'd start off by telling you all about that. We'll get that over with, then we'll move on to a couple other little things. I should start off by saying you can find out many, many things on the internet using Google and other search engines. Can you find out the truth about Masonry online? Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but yes, you can. The problem is that's a very small percent. Probably 90% or 95% of what you'll read isn't correct. So I think you're better off not to search. I think you're better off not to know some of the stuff. Here's something that I think may give you some comfort. When you go into that lodge that first night to become a Mason, you look around that room and every man standing before you has gone through the exact same thing. Masons in Ontario, going back to our beginning over 150 years ago, have done that. My dad is 93. He went through the exact same ritual that I went through and that you're going to go through, as my whole family has, and Masons in every country in the world. So everybody has done exactly what you're going to do. And we're all fine, and we got through it. So I want you to, when that happens, to take the time and enjoy it, and just try to relax. The second thing I advise is after you've done your first degree, after you've become initiated, I suggest that you make your way with your mentor to another lodge to see a first degree as quick as you can after that. And you can see it as a participant, and it'll give you better insight as to what you went through. So like I've already told you, you can find out a lot about Masonry already. But the big thing is, what are the secrets? So I'm going to tell you what the secrets are. The secrets to Freemasonry are what I would call alarm codes. So for instance, in my house here, we have an ADT alarm system. So we have a little pad near our front door, and when we go out, we set the alarm and it goes beep, beep, beep. Then if somebody opens the door, the siren goes on. When we come in the house, we have to put in a 4-number code to disarm the alarm. So our secrets in Masonry are primarily that alarm code. So when people say to Masons, well, why don't you tell me what the secrets are, the secret words, the secret hand grips, the handshakes, all the signs and stuff, why don't you tell me that? Well, ask yourself this: would you give somebody the code to your alarm at your house? Certainly not. So, as you know, Masonry is more than 300 years old. And of course, there were no alarms, there were no digital systems back in those days. So how would you know if somebody comes to your lodge when they were traveling for work? Again, back in the stonemasons days, they came to your town, they were working in your area, and they came to your lodge. How would you know they were a Mason? They could say, oh yeah, I'm a Mason, I'm a member of lodge so-and-so, in Guelph. And then you just don't say, yeah, okay, come on in. You want to know that they are a Mason. So that's what the secrets primarily are. It's the passwords, the grips, and the signs that allow us as Masons to identify each other. And you'll find out that in the 3 degrees, there are different signs, passwords, and grips that will identify you in that degree. And you will learn all of that, but really it's like an alarm system. The other part that's kind of a secret is the ritual that we do. We don't use ritual, which are the works that we do in the degrees, outside of Masonry. And the reason we don't do that is because if everybody knew, if we told everybody what we do, it's like when you were in grade 2 or 3, did you play telephone? So the teacher whispers something in your ear, and then you whisper it in the kid's ear beside you, and then it gets to the end of the class, and then the kid at the end of the line, the teacher says, what was the phrase? And the kid at the end of the line says the phrase, and it's nothing like the teacher. So that's why we don't print our ritual. That's why we keep it to within the lodges, because we want it to be right and correct. and it's solemn, and it means something to us. And it will mean something to you once that happens to you. So that's what the secrecy is. There's nothing more to the secrets than that. I quite often got asked by neighbors and friends, hey, is it true that Masons run the world? And so there's two answers to that. The first answer is, well, no. And you'll find that out quickly when you show up at a lodge one day to carpool to go visiting to another lodge. You will quickly learn Masons do not run the world. You'll have 5 guys carpooling to a lodge with 6 best ways to get there. So no, we don't run the world. But people will also point out, well, you know, there's been many world leaders and influential people through history, inventors, you know, really important, great men that have been Masons. So Masons must run the world. Well, that's actually backwards. It's not that Masons run the world. It's that men that have that ability and that knowledge and that drive to do these great things also have an interest in Freemasonry, just like you. Masonry is not for everybody, and that's why we don't advertise it. That's why you don't see big billboards saying, hey, come and join the Masons. For us, and you probably heard, and even some of our own brethren are focused on the numbers of men we're losing in Masonry. Masonry's been around for, again, I'm going to use the modern conservative and say just over 300 years. But Masonry in other forms has been around a lot longer than that. And how has Masonry survived all those years with no advertising? It's because it gives value. And Masonry has gone up and down in numbers throughout the years. After the First World War, there was a huge uprising in New Masons. Then it kind of died down. Then the Second World War, and then Masonry went to its heights again, peaking in the early 60s. And of course, some of the reasons for that are said to be that men coming back from war who had that camaraderie of fraternal bonds with their fellow soldiers missed that fraternal engagement. And so they came home and joined Masonic lodges, because similar to the armed forces, and we've got some ex-Army people actually on this call tonight. It's a similar thing in the sense that it's a brotherhood. Again, you know, we call ourselves brothers, but we don't just call ourselves brothers. We truly are brothers. We truly are family. And again, once you get into your Masonic journey, you'll find all this out. So again, it's not the Masons have run the world. It's just that great men that you know, have done great things, have been interested in Masonry. You know, Masons have diverse memberships: emperors, kings, presidents, religious leaders, sports heroes, entertainment legends, scientists, inventors, statesmen, all kinds of things. So I thought what I would do is just to take a minute to mention just a few of the famous Masons that you might be familiar with. So you've probably all heard about the in the United States, the Constitution. 13 of the signatures on the U.S. Constitution were Freemasons. Lots of presidents have been, 14 presidents have been Freemasons. 35 Supreme Court justices have been Freemasons. 82 military leaders have been Masons. And Masons in the US have included George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, also an inventor, Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, Andrew Jackson, J. Edgar Hoover, Jesse Jackson, Ronald Reagan, both George Bushes, Gerald Ford, George Wallace, John Hancock. When somebody says, put your John Hancock there, if you've ever seen the Declaration of Independence, John Hancock's name is perfectly signed. It's beautiful. His signature is so legible. So that's how the phrase, put your John Hancock there. You'll find a lot of phrases in normal day-to-day life come from Masonry, and you'll learn some of those as you go through the craft. Britain has had a lot of famous Freemasons. Winston Churchill, King George the Sixth, Edward the Seventh. King George the Sixth was Queen Elizabeth's father. He was not only a Mason, but he was our Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of England. We call it Ugly because it's the United Grand Lodge of England. So we shorten that down to Ugly. So he was the Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge of England. The current Grand Master is also a member of the royal family, and he is the Duke of Kent. Of course, Prince Philip is also a Mason. He promised Elizabeth's dad, King George, that he would join the craft, and he did. And other famous British people, Sir Walter Scott, and of course, everybody's favorite poet and Scotsman, Robbie Burns, was a Mason. In Canada, we've had a lot of famous Masons too. Our first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald. We've had many, many Prime Ministers that have been Masons. John Abbott, John Diefenbaker, many others. Harold Ballard, who owned the Toronto Maple Leafs, was a Mason. And some of your favorite beverage makers have been Masons as well. Tim Horton not only played for the Toronto Maple Leaf, and there were other Maple Leafs on that were Masons, but Tim Horton brews your favorite coffee. John Labatt was a Mason. John Molson was a Mason. And right here in the town that I live in, Kitchener, Ontario, Joseph Seagram, who the original Seagram plant was in Waterloo, was not only a Mason, but Joseph Seagram was the worshipful master of Grand River Lodge. And the Masons among us tonight will know that that is the mother lodge of our current Grand Master, most worshipful brother David J. Cameron. You've probably heard of Eaton's. John Eaton was a Mason, Edie, Sir Sanford Fleming, Hart Massey from Massey Ferguson, Lord John Simcoe, Gordon Sinclair, Joey Smallwood, Joseph Brandt. Great Canadian actor Graham Greene is a member of one of the lodges that I belong to in Stratford, Ontario. Oscar Peterson was a Mason. So many musicians as well: Mozart, Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson, Irving Berlin, Louis Armstrong, Beethoven, Roy Acuff, Justin Timberlake, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Lionel Richie, Brian May from Queen, Rick Wakeman from the band Yes, Peter Gabriel, and Tom DeLonge from one of those bands that the kids listen to. And of course, Brad Paisley, John Entwistle from The Who. And we had a local musician in Kitchener, Brian Vollmer, the singer of a Canadian heavy metal band named Helix, is a Mason as well. And of course, many people in film: Cecil B. DeMille, John Wayne, Bud Abbott, George Warner, Don Rickles, Mel Blanc, Roy Rogers, Harpo Marx, Richard Pryor, many more. And then many world leaders. Stephen mentioned that I go to Cuba a lot. The grandfather of Cuba, as Fidel Castro says, Fidel Castro's hero. If you've ever been to Cuba and you've been to a bank or any government offices, you see those little statues. You see a bust from just the shoulders up of a guy with bushy hair and a big bushy mustache. His name is Jose Marti. And he was Castro's hero. He was a revolutionary back in the day when Cuba fought for independence against the Spaniards. And Jose Marti was a Mason. Frederick the Great, the King of Prussia, the current president of Colombia is a Mason. Albert Einstein, and so many other scientists. Again, Steve Wozniak from Apple, Buzz Aldrin, the astronaut, second man to stand on the moon, Charles Lindbergh, Henry Ford, and of course the athletes that I mentioned, Arnold Palmer, Cy Young, Sugar Ray Robertson, Jack Dempsey, Ty Cobb, Willie Mays, Homer Wagner, Steph Curry, if you're a basketball fan, Steph Curry, and Shaquille O'Neal, and John Elway are just some of the other current Freemasons that we have. So you can see that Freemasonry has reached around, not only around the world, but through different walks of life and different areas. So I thought you might find that interesting. So another question you'll probably get asked, and probably by your wives or your sisters or female members of your family or friends. Why don't Masons allow women at their meetings? And so there actually is a very good reason for that. And it's not sexist at all. In fact, it's anything but. So if you can just take a second to think back when there's a group of guys and you're with a group of your friends and you're talking about something serious, something that matters, the way you talk, and all of a sudden a woman walks up, well, the conversation changes and it's natural. It's not that anybody's trying to put on an air or put on something fake. It's something that happens when women come in to a situation. Men, the chests puff up, and of course we act differently when women are around. I think everybody can admit to that in some way. And so women are actually sort of sacred in Freemasonry, and we hold women and our mothers and our sisters and our children very dearly and care about them. And so some of our education talks about the way we deal with our families and the way we deal with other human beings, including women, and to be respectful and stuff like that. And of course, so it's easier to do that stuff without women present. Also, Masonry is a fraternity. So a fraternity is a society. You hear about Masonry being a secret society or a society. It's not so a society is like a fraternity. And of course, women have them as well. They're called sororities. That's a group of like-minded women. And fraternities are a group of like-minded men. So our fraternity are a group of like-minded men interested in the same common values, principles, and ideas. So that's why we don't allow women in our lodges. There are lots and lots of groups for women to be part of. In fact, there are women masonry groups. Funnily enough, they call themselves brothers as well, which I don't understand. But there are groups of women Masons, but we are not what's called in amity with them. So we don't recognize them because we only recognize lodges that are all men, fraternities, in our Grand Lodges. There are also some lodges that are made up of men and women, that men and women can join, and we don't recognize them either. So another thing that you're probably asking yourself is, how can you get the most out of your Masonic journey? You've all heard the tagline that we use in our jurisdiction and in Masonry around the world. What do Masons do? We make good men better. And that makes sense to you. obviously you're interested in joining a lodge. Now, making good men better isn't magic. It's not like you walk into a lodge room, somebody clicks their fingers, and now you're a way better man and you're perfect. Making good men better is a process. My wife keeps asking, when will this process move forward? I don't have an answer for that. But it does moves a little slower with me, I think, than with some people. Slower than my wife would like it to happen. But again, remember, it's a process, and we're all going through the same journey together. Once you become a Mason, if you've been a Mason for 7 days, you're going through the same process that a man who's been a Mason for 60 years is going through. He's not perfect yet either. Everybody is on a journey. And so there should be no rush to be perfect. Unless you're reporting to Most Worshipful Brother Mumby. Then I would try to be perfect as quickly as possible, and that would be in your best interest. It's really important that through this process that you enjoy it. You need to enjoy it. Be proud to be a Mason. And try to live up to the principles of the craft that you learn. Again, you're not always going to be perfect, but all we can ask you to do is to try your best. So I'd like to leave you with a few comments that I think are important, and these are things that I've learned personally. So these aren't things I've read about, I'm going to tell you. These are things that this body has lived. And the first thing, the most important thing I would say to the new candidates out there, don't rush. Take your time. Enjoy the ride. I'm going to say that again. Don't rush. Take your time and enjoy the ride. You probably know there's lots of different things to do within Masonry. I'm a Shriner. I'm a member of the York Rite. I'm a member of Scottish Rite. I'm on all kinds of other committees. But gentlemen, you have lots and lots of time to do that. So when I became a Mason, there's 8 chairs. So if you think of a lodge as a small not-for-profit business, which is really what it is. So the chairs, so the worshipful master, the senior warden, junior warden, etc., those are all offices. And they compare to what it would be in a business or a not-for-profit. So the worshipful master is like the president. The junior warden is like the vice president. And then everybody down the line has their duty. So there are 8 steps to becoming the president of the lodge, or as we call it, the worshipful master. So once you decide to get into the chairs, it should be 8 years until you're the worshipful master. Now, when I joined a lodge. My mother lodge was quite healthy, but I joined a secondary lodge that I went to. My mentor took me to a first degree shortly after I got my first degree. I got my first degree on a Wednesday. The next Monday night, I went to see another first degree, and it was at a lodge that was in trouble. They were having trouble recruiting. They were having trouble getting new guys. They needed some people. I was really interested. My mentor suggested I join this lodge with him. He was a member there as well. So I joined a second lodge. Then they said, boy, we could really use some help in the chairs. And I said, well, geez, I'm not really ready for that. And I wish I would have stuck to my guns. So here's what you do. If somebody asks you something that you're not comfortable, you can do it. And here's a great term to use. With all due respect. With all due respect. I don't feel I'm ready to blah, blah, blah. I wish I would have said that. I wanted to help the lodge. So I stepped into, so I was a Mason less than a year. And now I'm the junior deacon of the lodge, which is the third. I went from instead of starting at the bottom at the first, I went to the third position. And yes, I studied hard and I did okay, I think, but I did myself a disservice. And I don't want you to do that disservice to yourself. I think it's much more fun, more enjoyable. It's better for you, and it will be better for your lodge in the long run. Please trust me. This is something I'm telling you about from experience. I haven't read this in a book. I've lived it, and I'm telling you. So I was master after being a Mason for 5 years. And that's a tough gig. That's a tough gig. Think of being the president of a board that you've only been a member of, like a part-time board, after 5 years. It's a tough road to hoe. So don't be rushed into the chairs. I advise, and we at Grand Lodge has some great documentation out there for the members out there. Go to the Grand Lodge website. There's 5 steps to becoming a Mason. There's all kinds of information on the Grand Lodge website about what young Masons should do. For instance, I wish I would have taken 3 full months at least before degrees. Do you know in Cuba, where I go to lodge quite often, you have to wait a year after you get your first degree to get your second degree. Then you have to wait another year to get your third degree. And then you won't get into the chairs for 4 or 5 years after that. So I wouldn't have even have been able to start the chairs when I was a past master. I wouldn't even be a master in my lodge in Cuba now if I had started in Cuba. And although, yes, now I'm a Grand Lodge officer and I do enjoy it, and I'm thankful to Most Worshipful Brother Cameron for giving me that opportunity, those opportunities will come along. What I'm saying is don't rush them. If you want to do all that stuff, that's great. You want to be a Shriner. You want to join the Scottish Rite. You want to join the York Rite. Those are all great things to do. I'm members of all of those things, and they're wonderful. But they'll be wonderful once you're ready for it as well. The lodge mentors out there, I hope you guys are listening to this as well. And again, I'm telling you this from my experience. To the candidates, you're going to get paired up with a lodge mentor and maybe even a lodge mentor and a coach. Lean on these guys. Ask these guys questions. Ask them anything. There are no stupid questions. There are no stupid questions. And to the mentors out there, I would just simply ask you, as happened with me, my mentors at Waterloo Lodge were great. They used the KISS system of mentoring, and it was wonderful. And I never felt dumb for asking any question that I asked. It was always answered. And again, mentors, if you can't answer the question right away, that's okay too. It's okay to say, geez, you know what? I don't know the answer to that, but I can find out. And Grand Lodge has all kinds of resources. You've got your DDGMs. You've probably got past masters with lots of knowledge in your lodges. You've got Grand Lodge officers in your district that would be glad to help you out. I just encourage you to do that. So take your time, and most of all, have fun and enjoy the ride and ask lots of questions. Speaking of questions,